We are super excited to be chatting about branding today. If you haven't met me, my name is Herman, and I'm a realtor here in Nanaimo with Oakwyn Realty. And today we have Jaclyn Chapman, who's going to be talking to us about branding, messaging, and yeah, we're super excited. And if you guys have questions or comments, please post them in the comments, and Jaclyn and I will get back to you. But yeah, Jaclyn, tell us about yourself. Give us an introduction.
So I'm a public relations strategist, and basically what I do is I help empower brands and businesses to know who they are and who their audience is, and help them create alignment and consistency throughout their brand. And really what that means is tying together your core values to your messaging, and then making sure that your messaging is relatable to your audience, and then that you bring it all together with like the visual components, and to create that compelling story, and that really just creates that relatability for your audience to feel like they know you and engage with you.
Totally. And I think you do such an amazing job of fitting all those puzzles together to really create that holistic approach to branding and creating the roadmap, which I think is so important, especially if you're a new business. Just having all those bits, those golden nuggets that are going to create the foundation of your business is so important and really valuable to have from the get-go.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know Jaclyn, she is phenomenal at doing this, and I think you were like born to do this. You're that good.
Thanks. Yeah. And you know, in addition, you had said earlier about creating that roadmap, and that's really essentially what I do, is just to create a relatability roadmap, so you can always go back to that and kind of like recenter yourself and align with who you are, as a reminder, so you can always speak authentically to your audience.
Totally. And what do you do to stay inspired?
Gosh, there's a few things. Again, living on Vancouver Island, we are so lucky to live here. So it really depends what type of inspiration that I'm looking for. You know, if I'm looking to get like recharged and re-energized, I'll head down to the ocean and just like watching the waves crash along the shore. It's just like, it just kind of fuels me. But you know, if I'm looking to be inspired by more of like a grounding feeling, you know, if my mind is going a mile a minute and I just need to kind of step back and check myself, heading up into the mountains, like that's my happy place. Like that for me kind of makes life stand still, just being amongst the trees and standing on the top of a mountain, and you're looking down, and you know, everyone's still living their lives down in the city below, but you're just standing there like living in that moment. And it really puts life into perspective that, you know, everything's always happening around you, and whatever your problem, big or small, it's like we all have problems, and you know, we're all just kind of in this journey of life together, and just being able to stand up there and kind of have that mindset, I can come back down the mountain and I just feel like a better connection.
That's so beautifully put, and I 100% agree with you. I think my most fondest memories with our friendship is being at the ocean together and going on those amazing hikes. And for those of you who don't know Jaclyn well, within our group of friends, we call her Sherpa Jaclyn because she just gets us through those hikes, and yeah, keeps us going. And you are you are sometimes hard to keep up with, but we are always so happy that you are there to just push us forward and to guide us. So thank you for that, and thank you for those
Yeah.
memories. And I'm so looking forward to more of that, hopefully soon.
Oh, I cannot wait. I can't wait to get back out there. It's even harder with the sun shining now. And,
I know.
it'll be great when we can all get back together, and we'll have to plan our next hike.
Totally. And yeah, at least we have all this time to do some planning and look forward to it.
Yeah, definitely.
And what are some things that you're doing during COVID? How are you adapting your business? Anything special that's working for you?
Um, yeah, I on an operational level, my business really hasn't changed.
Mhm.
But on a strategic planning level, there's definitely been some changes. Working with clients in adapting messaging and where the best place to reach their audience is. I mean, in a time of crisis, you know people change how they receive messaging, and they might change where they're going to receive that messaging. So it's always important just to keep that top of mind, and to always speak from a place of relatability. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all living this together. So I think that's really critical when there is a time of crisis, is just to speak from a place of empathy and compassion.
And that really is something important to be mindful of. I know with my business, reaching out to clients, just being aware of where they are at in their mindset, and yeah, coming from a place of compassion. I think we need so much of that right
Yeah,
now, and it's so appreciated. And but still, objectively being able to run our business and do those day-to-day things. But
definitely. Yeah.
that's yeah, really, really great piece of advice, Jaclyn. What inspires you to do what you do?
Gosh, I feel so lucky to be inspired by the work that I do. I think maybe a part of that comes from, I've always had this fascination with psychology and philosophy, and really just understanding, how the human mind works and what motivates us to do what we do, and why we do it. And I love just sitting and listening to people's stories. So I feel really fortunate that I work in an industry where those are such assets. I mean, just to sit in a room and listen to someone talk about the brand that they want to build, and the business they want to build, and what they want to achieve, and then to be able to take what they're saying, and take my life experiences and other people's experiences, and like craft it into like a tangible strategy that is going to produce results for somebody's business.
Mm-hmm. And I that's a compliment that I've heard quite a few times working with you, is just how, and experienced it myself, and how good of a listener you are. So that is I think that's really important for anybody, really, to just be a listener sometimes, and how much of an asset that can truly be, and
Yeah,
especially in your line of work, and understanding somebody's story and how that plays into your strategy, and further emphasizing that story, and the brand story.
yeah, I think it's really important just to stop and listen sometimes. I mean, there's so many distractions in the world today that it's sometimes really difficult to do that. I mean,
Yeah.
I think in my personal life, it's hard for me. Luckily, I'm good at it in business, but it's like my partner could be having a conversation with me, and it's like, oh, you have to put my phone down, right? Like, there's just like
Mm,
so many distractions in life. So it's nice when I go to work and I can just like sit and listen.
that's amazing. I love that. I struggle with that one too, being at home, and really practicing the act of listening.
Yeah.
Because I think for me, it does come easier when I'm with a client, but then I know like my son could be yelling at me and I'm just like tuning out, and then I tune in and I'm like, oh yes, it's terrible.
Totally right. It's like, I think as a parent, you just like eventually you kind of gain this ability to like tune out any type of annoying noise.
Right. You're like on the airplane, your kid's screaming, and you're just like,
You're just like, I don't hear anything.
yeah. It is a skill that we parents master.
Yeah.
But no, that's a really good reminder though. I mean, just to practice that in all aspects of life, and I'm glad you can kind of empathize with me there.
Yeah.
What are some tips for hiring a great branding consultant or strategist?
Yeah. So, I mean, with branding, there's so many components to it. And, it's not just the look of your brand. It's not the logo and the font and the color. I mean, that's just such a small part of it. It's also the feel of your brand. And I think it's important when you are working with someone that they can recognize that they're not coming at you with all these like flashy like gadgets and websites and telling you need this color and this font and this logo to be relevant. I mean, really, to be relevant, it's how you relate to people and building that loyalty and that trust with your audience. So, working with someone who understands that element of branding, I think is so critical. And then also working with someone that you just like, you really jive with. I think it's so important to work with people that speak your language, because it makes it easier, as a client and for a consultant to develop strategies that just fit and feel right.
Totally. That's a really good point you bring up, because I know Ryan Mazes, who I talked to about digital marketing, he brought that up too in terms of finding somebody that you have a shared vision with, so that you can both really be super clear on what the mission is or what the vision is. And in talking to that, it's really interesting, because I was talking to Rusilla, who I know is working with you on some branding, and last night he was trying to figure out colors and type fonts, and he's going through that process, but at the same time he's also working on the branding strategy with you. And I had to remind him to really sit down and go through that process first of the branding strategy, and then kind of come back to the colors and the fonts, because I think you need to really get into the essence and the psychology, and really creating that foundation which comes from that branding piece, and then from there building what is in line with these feelings or this vision that I have, what colors, what fonts are going to evoke that. So it's not an easy process. It's challenging, because I feel like you're getting past the surface and you're really diving deep, and it's so amazing how you have this process that gets people thinking about those things, because it is a lot easier to just say, I'm going to pick these 3 colors because I like them, and this 2 fonts because I like them, versus having more thought and depth to that.
Yeah, definitely. I think diving into that deeper element of it is so critical. And sometimes even when you're starting out on the journey, you think you know who your audience is, and by working through it, you realize that it's like that person actually isn't in alignment with you and your language and how you speak, and that any time that you try to craft a message, it's never going to fit with them or feel relatable or authentic. So it's like walking through that whole process of identifying who you are, and what your values are, and then using that to determine who you want to work with is really critical, in knowing what types of fonts and colors are going to be suitable for that specific audience. And I still think it's important to love the way your brand looks.
Yes.
But you also have to have that underlying tone of knowing who you're speaking to.
Totally. Yeah, because then you don't want to look back and think, I wish I'd done this differently or chosen something differently.
Yeah.
So I think it just really like makes it all concrete and come together and work well together.
Yeah, it's like building that foundation, right? So if you can build a strong foundation that's rooted in your own authenticity, and then an audience that is relatable to you and you're relatable to them, then you can really build up from that.
Yeah, totally. What are some key questions entrepreneurs should be asking themselves when starting to brand themselves?
Yeah. So identifying like what your purpose is. Why are you doing what you do? Why do you love doing it? And just like that's going to help drive that passion. And just being able to articulate that is going to be, it's going to make you more believable. I mean, it's so hard to just like speak from a place when you don't believe what you're saying. And I mean, I think we've all tried to kind of force those situations thinking that we should be doing something because the opportunity maybe presented itself, and it never feels right and it never clicks, and people can see that. So if you can really identify what your purpose is and why you're doing it, then you're always going to be able to speak from this place of authenticity. Yeah. And then just knowing how your audience feels when they're interacting with your product or your service. I think that's so critical, is to always go back to, okay, well, how is the consumer going to perceive this, and how are they going to feel, and how do I want them to feel? That just helps create a better foundation and a better knowing of who you're speaking to, so you can speak the same language as them.
Yeah, totally. And I love that when we went through the process, one of the exercises or questions that really hit home for me and kind of made everything very clear was this reverse engineering of getting me to think about, what do I want people to be saying about my brand or my business in a closed door environment, and just being able to step into the client's shoes and coming at it from there just was such a great little exercise and question to work through to kind of really concrete those things in the brand.
It's funny because I ask that question and it always kind of stops people, because they're just like, oh, well, I never really thought about that, because, it's like they're thinking about what their purpose is, but to like step back and step into the client's shoes, it just offers such a whole other perspective.
Yeah, totally. And really makes that process so much easier in a way.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And then I also ask people who their competition is, and what is their competition doing, and what makes you different than your competition. I think it's so important to identify what makes you different, and identify the benefits of what makes you different. Because, if you don't have that, then you're going to get caught up in like the chase of, seeing what your competition is doing and feel that you need to do the same, but that might not be in alignment with who you are and what your core values are. So it's really bringing it back to what makes you different, and really focusing on the benefits of that.
Yes, focusing on the positive rather than or like the abundant mindset, rather than being in that scarcity mindset, because that's so energetically exhausting. And I think we've all been there, especially being in a maybe a sales or competitive business. But yeah, you don't want to go there. Keep it real. Be yourself. it's so much easier and, well spent energy on putting it into your own branding and your own marketing, and just staying true to yourself.
Yes, that is key.
Yeah, how do you come up with authentic brand messaging? That's a big one.
Yeah, again, it's just like, speaking from a place of truth and understanding, and really just knowing who your audience is, and speaking to an audience who also speaks your language. I mean, you don't have to be everything to everyone. There might be people that just don't get on with your brand or your personality, and that's okay. Those aren't the people that you should be focusing on. And this is where it becomes important in the beginning to really identify who your audience is, and the people that need your service or your product, that are best going to relate to you. Because if you can kind of hone into that, you can develop messaging that people are just automatically going to click with and understand. Like, it's awesome when you can take in a brand and you feel like they're speaking your language, and they feel like you're speaking to you, and that like creates this sense of loyalty.
Totally. I 100% agree with you there. And I've experienced that in some of my favorite brands. And it's simply because there's a very captivating, brand messaging and story. And there's that relatability and human connection. And I think people are becoming more aware of that versus, the big box branding and messaging, which is, they cast a wide net and try to get anybody and everybody. But I think just taking it back to the simplicity and authenticity. And yeah, you don't need to get everybody. You just need to get your loyal people that you enjoy working with too.
Exactly.
It's a trade-off, right? So
Yeah.
so much value in that. And yeah, and I love the way that you have this organic approach, and you like your whole strategy and your whole business model is around creating it from a very organic, holistic place, which it's so proven to work, and it really does work. And I think you've proved that in all your work and with your clients. So
Thanks.
yeah.
It really comes back to just always coming from a place of just like truth, and just being yourself, and not being like, drawn in by those egocentric tactics. And just, it's really just kind of checking yourself, and always finding that relatability with other human beings.
Yes, I love that. I love that. Be strong, but balance, and add a bit of softness and compassion, because
Yeah.
it's a recipe for success, everybody.
Yes.
Okay, and yeah, so my last question to you, you are a mom of two boys. How do you find balance in running your own business, being a rock star mom, and everything else that you do? What's your secret?
Great question. I don't know if I've found balance. I like to call it an ebb and a flow. There's times where I feel like life is so chaotic, and I have no idea how I'm going to keep it together. And it becomes so overwhelming, it really takes just kind of stepping back and understanding that it's not all overwhelming. It's just all of the tasks that are put together are overwhelming. And it's really just kind of stepping back and realizing that brings me balance in life, and that the big picture seems scary, but when you break it down, it really isn't scary. It's like, I can cook dinner, I can drive my son to soccer, I can send 6 emails. Like, they're easy tasks. It's just sometimes you get caught up in the overwhelmingness of the big picture. So I think really for me to find balance is just to step back and realize that everything doesn't have to be perfect, and that I can accomplish each task if I just lay it out as a task.
That's such wonderful insight. And I really see you applying that mindset, I think, to all aspects of your life, including, I'm always wondering, on these hikes, how you're doing it, but you really do apply the one step at a time. So that's so amazing. And I think, that makes me feel better, because I'm a new mom and I'm always trying to grasp at this idea of balance. But I think you're so right in saying that it really is an ebb and flow. And yeah, at the end of the day, just, doing the best you can and having that simple mindset of just taking it one thing at a time really does put everything in perspective, and allows you to get all those things done.
Exactly. And I mean, gosh, I don't know if I would be where I am today without like amazing friends and family. Like that is like when I can call someone and just like vent and let it all out. It's just like, it's on the table and it's done. And then it's like, other people can help you put life into perspective. And I think it's just so critical to have such a great support system, because I mean, it's just, life can become so overwhelming. There's so many pressures, external pressures, and then the pressures that you put on yourself. So it's okay to like fall apart and feel like you need to lean on somebody else, because that's what your friends and family are there for.
Oh, I love it. Such a good reminder. Thank you.
Yes.
We need it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Do you have anything else that you want to add, or any other tips?
No, you know what? I feel like we covered a lot. If there is anything that anyone has questions about that we didn't hit on, or maybe you want us to delve a little deeper into it, just shoot us a message in the comment section and we'll definitely get back to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jaclyn. That was such a great session together. I love these conversations, and I look forward to hopefully doing some more videos or maybe some podcasts. We'll see.
Yes, that'd be amazing. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
All right. Bye.